Yo, man, can you see the mics, man?
Welcome to Norse Code, the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host producer. My name is James McCarthy. Thank you guys so much for listening. And at the other end of the tin can and string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from the Wide Left Substack. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, since we have time and we're clearly not going to spend that much time going over the recap of this awful Vikings-Packers game, I'm going to list the 45 or 44 other quarterbacks in Vikings history that I would prefer to have start over J.J. McCarthy in their current state. George Shaw, Fran Tarkington, Ron Vanderkillen, Bob Berry, Joe Cap.
Okay, you joke, but did you see Joe Cap in that fight? He could do it.
He could absolutely do it.
He one of the few people that McCarthy throws a prettier ball than, and I don't care. Joe Cap, get in there, bud.
Bob Lee, Norm Snead, Tommy Kramer, Steve Dills, Wade Wilson, Archie Manning.
That's right, Archie Manning.
Tony Adams, Rich Gannon, Sean Salisbury, Jim McMahon. That's right, me, Jim McMahon. Warren Moon, Brad Johnson.
Just for like context, like Jim McMahon has such severe CTE, he has light sensitivity and cannot see, and so
in
James is like,
current state.
Yeah, just like throw that guy out there. It's fine.
Brad Johnson, Randall Cunningham, Jeff George.
Jeff George would do it, actually.
I would rather see Dante Culpepper, Todd Bowman, Spurgeon Wynn, Gus Perrott, Rip Jack, Kelly Holcomb, Brooks Bollinger, Brett Favre, Joe Webb, Donovan McNabb, maybe Christian Ponder.
Yeah, I was like, are you skipping over Christian Ponder? I'm very curious about this one.
Matt Castle, Josh Freeman, Teddy Bridgewater, Sean Hill, the Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, Kirk Cousins. I was pining for Kirk Cousins this weekend.
Did you see him this week?
I did. I was pining for Sean Mannion, for Jaron Hall, Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins.
I'm looking through all of the
Carson Wentz.
I knew you were going to do that. That's why I paused. I was looking through all of the reminiscing quarterbacks that we could go through today that like the Vikings could have had. See how they did. So like Shedeur Sanders threw for 10.4 yards per attempt in like a fake good game, right? It wasn't actually that good.
No, it was against the Raiders. They're not a serious NFL team.
But like 10.4 yards an attempt, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, somehow only 1 sack, despite it being Shedeur Sanders. Kirk Cousins, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, only 3 sacks, 199 yards on 23 attempts. And then did we get we got a Sam Darnold game, right? And so we had Sam Darnold, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now the worst game might have actually belonged to one of the closest ones to the MVP race, Daniel Jones. And he still had 181 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 99 passer rating. And you could expand the misery cohort, right? Maybe is the best way to put it, to include Drake May, because the Vikings almost traded up to get Drake May, who, if we wanted to include him, would have had the worst game probably out of all these guys, with 8.4 yards per attempt, mind you. He did not look as into it as and mind you, a bunch of these games were really good, but like he did not look as into it against the Bengals as a bunch of other of these guys did. A lot of almosts in this Vikings group of passers this week.
Wasn't good.
It
wasn't good. You know who I would have rather had as my quarterback on Sunday? I would have rather had Ed Luther in 1983, who, by the way, holds the record for most interceptions on a Monday night football game. I would have rather had Ed Luther with 6.
6 in 1983. Now, mind you, this was for a Chargers team that was addicted to throwing it deep, which might sound familiar to Vikings fans. But that was the whole deal for the Chargers, and he was backing up Dan Fouts, who was injured. And they were just like, hey, man, chuck it deep, dude. I believe in you.
I believe in you. Just looking at the players who have the most interceptions overall in games, I would have rather had in their current state, even though he played in 1950, Jim Hardy. Ty Detmer. There's a 2001.
Yeah.
Ken Stabler, Tommy Wade. I would have rather had Ryan Fitzpatrick's performance in 2016 against the Chiefs, where he threw 6 picks.
Oh my God, 6! Jeez.
The list of people with 6 interceptions is great, by the way. Peyton Manning. We get Vinny Testaverde is in here too. Jim Zorn, Joe Namath. Yeah. But Joe Namath did this multiple times, by the way.
Yeah, I assume all of them like 1972 and later.
Yeah. Norm Van Brocklin had 6.
Yeah, MVP.
1954.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that J.J. McCarthy had a rough night. Well, he had a rough day. I want to believe that it kind of went into the night because apparently he's now dealing with concussion symptoms and may not be starting for the game next week.
No, I mean, no chance he's starting for the game. Once you enter the concussion protocol, it's like at least a week, right? I mean, I guess it's technically possible.
It's technically possible, but
no way.
Yeah. So we've got a game to cover. And the worst part about all of this is that Justice is ridiculously happy. That isn't right. Justice is not allowed to be happy. Not this level of happy.
For people who didn't listen to it, Justice is the name of a person. Not like we're not talking about like the concept.
The concept of Justice in America is not allowed to be happy. It's not allowed to be no. Justice Mosqueda.
A truly
NFT owner.
NFT owner
that happens to have a ugly ape with a Packers jersey on.
Crypto bro Justice Mosqueda.
Yes, that. West Coast elitist. Justice Mosqueda is just the happiest person on the planet about that game. The only thing he wants more is Quasi to get another extension. Which is also to say that personally, I do feel that we are wasting the prime of Will Reichert at this moment. With his kicks. This is unacceptable. You cannot waste the prime of a kicker. I'm sorry. Well, let's get into shilling. God, this game was awful. If you enjoy the show and would like to help us out financially, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can go over to patreon.com/norsecode. For $3.50 a month or a little less for the year subscription, you get access to the Discord, bonus episodes, all of that. I'm actually going to be putting a bonus episode out on Thanksgiving. So check that out. That'll be available a little later this week. It'll either be Thanksgiving or it'll be Black Friday, but still, check it out. That'll be available over at Patreon. You can also go to paypal.me/norsecode as well for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com for any number of wonderful pieces of Norse Code merchandise. We have the shirts, the baby onesies, the Arif gear is back in stock, so check it out. Norse Code.
You got to order it now to get it in time for Christmas to have the seasonality of the Arif wreaths.
Exactly. This is you. Why not celebrate Arif's cult of personality with a sweater, which you can get at norsecode.threadless.com.
That felt weird that you added that last part.
I'll stop being correct then. All right, so we can get into the show. I've already said last recap. I said I was running out of ways to use like frustrated because it was like the only word that was able to be used. Like this was another winnable game. this was another terrible performance. This was not JJ McCarthy's best performance. I don't know that it was necessarily his worst, but it was so bad. And there has been a lot of ink spilled this week about whether there's one person rather who is believing that the Vikings may be failing JJ McCarthy, but otherwise it's not great out there. And at what point do you, ignoring the fact that he's in concussion protocol right now, and as a result will likely not start on Sunday, at what point do you start to consider what this is doing for the locker room?
That's a good question.
Trotting this out week after week when he is either clearly not ready or clearly in need of a major set of changes for him that you are not going to accomplish this year. At what point do you go, we get it?
We get it.
We have
You're
to
young. We get it.
We have to do the Carolina Panthers thing and bench him.
Okay, so the Carolina Panthers, correct me if I'm wrong, they had Andy Dalton on the roster, right?
They did at that point, yeah.
I'm really anticipating like what Max Brosmer can do, right? I'm kind of excited to see what'll happen. I'm curious. I would love to be kind of wrong about like the idea that there is essentially no floor and that he might help fulfill that understanding. And I would love to be wrong about that, right? That'd be so cool. But that's not Andy Dalton, right? Which is not an enormous sign of respect for me to say. But Andy Dalton's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the end. It's like him and Jacoby Brissett are like just up there, right? And so it's a little bit easier for you to go, well, we're going to bench this guy because we've got a guy that can help win some games. Not that the Panthers were in the business of winning games necessarily, but you got to try, right? You got to, like, these players have like bonuses and stuff attached. You got to try. So it is a little bit easier, right, to do that when Andy Dalton is the guy, as opposed to an undrafted rookie. Now, the Vikings don't have a choice, just like they didn't have a choice when it came to trying to figure out if they wanted Carson Wentz to come back. That's done. They sacrificed him on a Thursday night against the Los Angeles Chargers, and we've never heard of him again. Like, that's fine. He's been sent to the negative zone. But yeah, like I don't know that it's like the same circumstance because, like, yeah, okay, if the players are upset, which we can only speculate about, because as far as I know, there's not been any reporting of players being upset with McCarthy. The public statements, like Josh Metellus, Ryan Kelly, they're all indicating that actually they think that McCarthy is playing well, which, we all know the game here. No, he's not, but like, you're being a nice teammate. Great. Justin Jefferson is like frustrated, but like kind of not directionally frustrated, just kind of generally frustrated. So we can't say he's frustrated necessarily. So we don't know, right?
We're not getting weird we're not getting weird wide receiver tweets from him yet.
Right. Yeah. There's no where there's smoke kind of stuff happening right now. So we don't know. So we can only speculate that the players are probably not too happy about the state of affairs after having won 14 games with a quarterback that walked out the door. But I think it's reasonable to assume that at least some players in the locker room are not, particularly enamored with the way that this has been handled. I don't know that you can do anything for them. I think what you did was the problem, and what you can do no longer can resolve this. It's not like the players will be like, thank God you turned over to Max. I could be wrong about that. Maybe there's like a secret groundswelling of support for Max Brosmer in the building. I kind of doubt it because backups just like don't get reps. So like there's not really a lot of evidence that they would have that Max Brosmer's like ripping it unless he's like doing a bunch of crazy stuff in scout team like Patrick Mahomes was doing when Alex Smith was the starter. Which again doesn't feel like the vibe, if I'm being honest. But yeah, like I don't know that there's anything you can do at the quarterback position that's going to get you more wins, except like, I hate saying this, except get Carson Wentz healthy. And then you can have that discussion, right? Whichever one the players prefer. Which again, if you're in a spot where the locker room, I don't just mean like who the better football players, but literally the locker room might prefer the guy who has only had locker room issues, has only caused problems in the locker room. If that's the scenario that we'd be discussing, we'd be in a pretty bad spot. So I don't know that there's anything you could do about that, but yeah, it's really tough because and I think this speaks to how well Kevin O'Connell has communicated how he wants the locker room to handle itself. But it's only been like people are talking about McCarthy in positives or couched positives, right? They're either like, he's doing this well, he's really good at this, he's locked in, he's playing well, or he is demonstrating the kinds of things we want him to see, right? Which is a couched positive, right? It's like you're not saying that he's helping you win games. You're saying the friendliest version of, well, he's not there yet, right? So we again, credit to O'Connell to like the locker room hasn't fallen apart. But yeah, I don't know that there's anything you can do to restore confidence in the season, right? They're not mathematically eliminated. Only one team, as far as I know, that's the Giants. But they're done. They're done, right? It's the season.
Looking at the season, I don't know who you beat.
I'm confident. You beat the rest of them. And then I think also a couple of balls have to bounce your way in games you're not in. Yeah. In order to make the playoffs, you have to win every game. And then some like key players have to lose some games somewhere in this like melange of NFC 7th seed potentials, right?
Just looking at the schedule for the rest of the year.
You've already beat the Lions once, so you know you can do it again.
Obviously, that is how that works. I don't even think you need to go to Detroit for that game.
They'll just give it to you. Yeah.
Oh, that's the Christmas game in Minnesota. Oh God. Yeah. That'll be a fun 3:30. So Vikings Seahawks. Nope. Commanders Vikings maybe. You've got
Cowboys. That's a huge maybe. That's a big maybe.
That was if you just sit. He doesn't need to like throw the ball. He can just hand off the entire time, and that's
and they'll get 7 yards a carry based off of what I've seen.
And the next game against the Giants, probably.
Yeah, so, that's not just a maybe. That's a probably. So hey, that's 3 wins that we just discussed. Let's skip the Seahawks. That's 3 wins. You just got to get 3 other wins, and one of those teams you've already beaten. Right, the Lions. So that's 4 wins. Really,
this was the Packers game was clearly a game that we could have won had it not gone, more than 2 scores. So that could potentially.
Hey, that first half was a 1-score game. That tells you that's a winnable game. That puts it in the maybe column. Buddy, we're cooking with gas.
Let's talk about that first half for a moment, because that's the only offense we can talk about. If I had my way, we would talk about this game for the same number of minutes that the
Vikings possessed the ball 22.
No, actually, that actually works better than my answer, I suppose. We would talk about it for the number of yards that the Vikings offense was able to like produce in the second half, which I think was -1 total. Just a nightmare. Let's talk about that decision in the first half to not kick the field goal and instead do the one play up the gut that the entire stadium knew was coming. Can we make a rule that if JJ McCarthy is your quarterback and you pass the 35-yard line, that you just take the points?
No, I mean, like people have been talking. So this is the 10 minutes 31 seconds left in the second quarter, 4th and 1 at the Green Bay 17. You're really close to getting a field goal, right? Just kick it, you'll get a field goal. I don't hate this. The problem is like, so on 3rd and 1, they did a direct snap to TJ Hawkinson. They got nothing. And then they did like a traditional run up the middle.
Why the hell would you do that?
So I realize I'm asking you to defend this decision. Hawkinson, no, but like if you're gonna like put him in a push situation, McCarthy could push him instead of having his hands like in his pockets. Yeah,
Like-
so the tushes are cold. They're not being pushed. There are no warm hands assisting these tushes in the push, right? It's a solo push. And I so when people have broken down the tush push, we've got a piece over at Wide Left actually about the tush push in anticipation of the Philadelphia Eagles game. When people have talked about the tush push, one thing that they've kind of identified is that like the pushing element is actually not that critical to the play the way it's run, and it's kind of like a misdirect, right? People focus on the pushing and the amount of power, but really what matters is your ability to collapse in on a particular defensive lineman and attack that gap. And so in theory, it kind of doesn't matter what the whole deal is. And so whichever player you feel comfortable kind of reading that gap correctly, you can kind of put there and have them take the snap, assuming they are comfortable with them taking the snap, because we know that snap exchange isn't always a 100% clean process. And so that's the way that you would kind of defend that call, right? Is just to say, well, it really does work like 87% of the time. So okay, sure, fine, whatever. The traditional run up the middle, it's one of those where I should watch that back just to be clear, but it felt like Kingsley Enagbare was kind of like an end man on the line of scrimmage, unblocked, like intentionally unblocked as part of the run design. And I just feel like that's probably not the thing you want to do on 4th and 1, which is not me saying that all these runs, and again, I haven't watched that particular playback, but it's not to say that all these runs with unblocked backside defenders are bad, right? But rather that in short yardage situations, you're just much more likely to get guys trying to shoot gaps, backdoor, attack the runner, and all that. That is going to be a little bit more difficult. That's it. I don't hate this decision, especially because we've been talking about how the Vikings are one of the least conservative 4th down teams in the league, and they continue to lose points by being, I believe, the second most conservative. Right? I said least conservative, most conservative 4th down teams in the league. I believe they're number 2 behind like the Titans or whatever, which is a great company. So you should be more aggressive on 4th down. I think that is one of the 4th downs you should be aggressive on. And I think that we've been talking about how they don't run the ball enough in short yardage. Well, they did exactly that with the back that we would call the short yardage back, and it just didn't work out. So actually, I think that decision is fine. I just think that this is a JJ McCarthy game. I don't really want to talk about, like, there are things that the offense should have done better, right? But I really don't want to talk about, like, game management decisions as if they mattered here. Like, they didn't. The quarterback was bad. This is the worst Vikings individual quarterback game performance since, like, what was it? Actually, I'll just pull it up again because, like, it is kind of said it's like 2020 or something like that. It's been years since we've seen a quarterback performance from a Vikings player this bad. I'll pull it up. So he had minus 0.67 EPA per dropback according to True Media's next gen stats. So there are a couple of EPA per dropback statistics kind of floating around out there, which I don't have a problem with, but we're going to get a bunch of different numbers. And I just want everyone to know that all of these different numbers are because they're calculated a little bit differently. So PFF has their own EPA calculation for every down and distance and field position. So does Next Gen Stats. So does Running Backs Don't Matter. Running Backs Don't Matter uses the open source NFL Faster tool. And so you will just get different EPA, but they're broadly all directionally the same. They just use a different calculation. All right, so negative 0.67 EPA per play is the 5th worst since the year 2000 and the worst since, this was it, 2013. So over a decade. Matt Castle, week 16 against the Cincinnati Bengals, a 14-42 loss, where Matt Castle had a 48% completion percentage, 4.2 yards per attempt, and threw 3 picks. It took 4 sacks. So anything else that we talk about, like the running game, the decision to go for on 4th down, all of that is just subordinate to how poor the passing production was, which doesn't have to be a JJ McCarthy problem, but in this case, I think is, right? I want to bring up a couple of things. So First of all, right before the show, I was made aware of like a 10 to 15 minute video that kind of maybe defending JJ McCarthy is not the correct interpretation. Again, I haven't watched the video, but the way it was characterized to me is that there's so much context here for how much of the problem is the offense. I haven't watched this yet. I am suspicious of the voice that is speaking to us. I'll just say it right now. Connor Stallions, if you recognize that name, that's the guy that got popped for cheating at Michigan. So already a very reliable source. Puts out this video, again, 10 to 15 minutes. I think it's like 11 minutes, that details all the problems with the Minnesota Vikings offense. And I just think like, A, I don't trust you as like a matter of principle because you're Connor Stallions. But like, B, you're a Michigan dude. The whole deal with Connor Stallions, the reason he was cheating for Michigan is because since like age 6, he has been a Michigan super fan, and it has been his goal and desire to end up on the Michigan coaching staff. He is obsessed with Michigan football, and like that's been his whole deal. And so I'm going to take whatever he says with a grain of salt. But I did watch about half of JT O'Sullivan's video on this game. I did also like watch the game myself. I formed my own opinions. And then I also watched Kurt Warner's study ball video on it, which I think they all take different approaches to this. And I think it's really illuminating to watch a couple of people that know a lot about the game and a lot about discussing the game and communicating it well, to have a discussion about it. And there are elements of the offense that have inhibited things for McCarthy. The way I put it, so I did a radio hit this morning. The way I put it on the radio hit was there are a lot of problems with the offense, but it is as if you're at a track meet and someone is putting hurdles in front of the slowest runner. Like, you shouldn't do that. That's not helping that guy, for sure, right? But he's going to finish last, like, no matter what you do. So I don't know why we're focusing so much on the hurdles, right? Like, that's kind of like where I'm at, is the fundamental talent that we're working with isn't capable at the moment, right? This is not like a long-term whatever, at the moment, of producing winning football. Also, some of the stuff that's happening on offense, and I think it's overstated, some of the stuff that's happening on offense is not remarkably helpful. Now, I think receivers are open within the timing of the play more often than not. And that is kind of like if that is true, it is very difficult for the rest of the offense's design to be so horrible as to limit the quarterback. The answers to blitzes are not very good. They're chipping defenders and then having the person chipping the defender as the outlet against the blitz, which means that the defender you just chipped now has a free run. And now your outlet isn't in his pattern at the right time. Like, that's not good, right? But like, both Kurt Warner and JT O'Sullivan are, and I would be shocked if they watched each other's videos, right? Are using some of the exact same words to describe what McCarthy is doing, which is essentially way too slow to make decisions. And in this game, what we're seeing a lot of is that McCarthy is not moving off of obviously not bad, but like the read you obviously have to move off of in order to get to the next part of his read. So Kurt Warner describes the Vikings offense as a full progression offense, which he actually doesn't like. He would prefer kind of a quick half field read offense, and I'll explain what I think he is attempting to communicate. I could be wrong, right? My understanding is that the way he wants your offense to be designed for your quarterback is for your quarterback to very quickly pick a side that he's going to read first pre-snap, and then determine before you snap the ball, what are the things that are going to move me away from this side post-snap? If a safety rotates, if a cornerback rotates, if the linebacker buzzes into the flat, that's going to complicate the numbers here. What are the things that are going to move you off that side? And then check for that before moving to the new side or to stay with your read. And one of the issues that Kurt Warner has with the way that McCarthy plays this is that he very often doesn't seem to have a good understanding of which half of the field he should be looking at. And it could be that this is a left to right read offense, which I would be again, shocked, right? Because my understanding of this offense is that it's deep to short, right? Which is most offenses. We had it was either a different podcast or this podcast or even something I wrote where I had someone like, I can't believe that this is a deep to short offense. Kevin O'Connell, you're making this offense throw deep all the time, and he doesn't have the facilities for this. Almost every offense in modern professional football is like deep to short. In essence, right? Every play has its own progression. On mesh, your progression might be not the deepest one, but on that mesh, depending on if there's an alert. So you might be reading the actual shallows that are crossing each other and then get to kind of a post to your right or the rail on your left, right? Like not every offense, not every play is deep to short, but that is the general progression, right? And you move off of these really quickly. So it's not as if you're reading the first receiver, waiting to see if that guy is open and then moving 2 to 3 to 4, but rather seeing if a deep option is remotely available to you all and then snapping your eyes even before you get to your third step in a 5-step drop back, right? Like that's that you have to be moving your helmet during the drop back. And that's one of the things McCarthy is not doing. His eyes are stuck on it. We say like he's locked onto his first read, and that is like true. But the issue here is that when he knows that guy is not going to be the guy. So a good example of this is against cover 2 man. You've got a deep shot, right? You've got like a go or a corner, right? Well, against cover 2 man, if that guy is in man coverage, he's got one corner that's always following him. And then if it's a deep route to maybe the corner or even just up, then there's also a safety. This guy is effectively double covered. There's a safety on top. You got a guy underneath. Fine. That guy is out of the play. That's why you have routes. So you can go to the other elements that are going to beat that part of the offense. As soon as you see that safety rotate to the top of your deep guy, and you know that route is gone, you should be moving your eyes. And what Warner often wants him to do is make the decision about which half of the field he's going to be looking at based off of the first step or two of what these safeties are doing, which that can lead to problems because they can disguise and trick and stuff like that. And then stick to that side. It takes a long time to move your head, move your eyes in the context of an NFL play to the other side, right? Unless that side doesn't have, a progression that's like nominally worth going to. But like generally speaking, like you'll have this deep shot and then you'll have this underneath shot. And what Warner talks about a lot, and he doesn't use this language, but it's pretty clear what he's doing, is he is asking quarterbacks like McCarthy to identify keys and read those keys. And by that, I mean individual defenders who will be pivot points on the play. And so the way this play works is the first pivot point is this deep safety. If this deep safety does not rotate up top, we've got a deep shot, rip it, right? And you can let that ball go as soon as you hit the top of your drop. You're throwing with anticipation, great, touchdown. If that deep safety moves to cover your guy, snap your eyes to either the other side of the field, if that's not what the route concept is allowing you to do, or move to your next read as you continue to drop back. And your next read is not the receiver. You're not looking at the receiver. You are determining if this is what the coverage is, right? If we've got man coverage and the safety up top, right? That means that the other 9 defenders, right, are doing some other things. Let's assume 4 are rushing. Okay, so I've got 5 other defenders to worry about. Most likely there's one defender, only one, that is going to complicate my next read. You have to identify who that defender is and see if they complicate your read, right? And what Warner does in this video, which is really cool, is that he keeps on identifying conflict defenders, which is to say defenders who are forced to make a decision about 2 receivers that they're going to cover. And so you can ignore a lot of defenders on a play because they're not in conflict, right? They will have their assignment, and their assignment is going to take a receiver away from you, and you don't even have to worry about that. You have to identify the conflict defender and see where that conflict defender goes. If he defends up top, you throw short, vice versa. If he defends right, you throw left, vice versa, right? But when you design plays, you are putting defenders in conflict. The whole idea is you're going to make it impossible for the defense to defend you based on various coverages and defensive setups, such that someone is going to be put into an impossible position.
And so you have to identify who that person is and then make your decision based on that person. It very much seems like McCarthy is not doing that. It very much looks like he's waiting to see if a guy is open, which is not how NFL ball is played. Again, I'm saying seems like, this is my guess, these are estimations, but he very much looks like a player that is trying to see if a guy is open. And so he is seeing that, he's reading the receiver he wants to throw to and seeing what his leverage is against the nearest defenders, which feels like the right thing to do. And some coaches will teach that, but very often isn't, because you will not make that determination until pretty late into the play. And so he's not making these decisions. So both JT O'Sullivan and Kurt Warner have identified how slow McCarthy is to move off of that first read and start moving his eyes around. And I don't know if this is a slow processing thing, because there's some stuff he processes really quickly during games. And so it is certainly possible that the issue is not that he's a slow processor, but that his eyes aren't snapping to the right parts of the field. And it is, again, like we talked about with mechanics, pretty difficult to train you to do that consistently over the course of a game, to read the defenders as opposed to your receivers, right? So that's what it looks like. It looks like he is too slow to get to where he needs to go, because it's not as if receivers aren't getting open. And this is not like taking a screenshot of a play, identifying the open receiver and saying, throw to that guy, because that's not, you can't, no one's looking at all 53 and a third yard width of the field, 50 yards down. No one has the ability to process all of that information with a wide angle view of the field. You don't know who's going to be open, which is why you have progressions. This one, this one, this one, this one. And if your first progression seems open, you should probably throw that. And it doesn't matter if the second progression, the third progression, fourth progression is open, because you don't have time to go there. You don't know if they're open before you make a decision. So you only make a decision based off of whether your first read is open, or going to be open rather, then your second, then your third, then your fourth. And so it's not about, oh my God, this guy's open, you should have thrown it to him, because maybe that guy wasn't in the progression or whatever. But it's more about how late he is to make the determination that that play is not going to be there. So that's kind of the broad level what we're looking at. But there were some offensive line problems. There was some communication, which again, we've talked about. I think that's on McCarthy. Some communication about how deep we're setting our pass sets. It seems like there was some problems with, especially with Michael Parsons, but like Ryan Kelly and Donovan Jackson and Christian Darrisaw all kind of figuring out what the blocking scheme is here. There was a lot of quick pressure in this game. In fact, I believe McCarthy, as a percentage of his dropbacks, had the highest rate of quick pressures in this game. But his performance under quick pressure was the worst of the week. And his performance when you exclude quick pressure was one of the worst we've seen this year, period. Only two other quarterbacks this year have had worse performance when you exclude plays with quick pressure. That was Jake Browning against the Vikings and Tua Tagovailoa against the Browns. Those are the only two games where, when you only look at plays where there was a clean pocket or pressure came after 2.5 seconds, either or, the EPA per dropback was worse than what McCarthy put together. On those quick pressures, it's not just a question of the offensive line got beat really quickly. It seems like in some of these situations, there's some type of communication problem between the quarterback and the offensive line in terms of the way that they would block that play. There's one instance that the broadcast identified where the play is designed to get rid of the ball nearly instantly. And McCarthy hesitates, holds onto the ball, and then Micah Parsons gets to him. And that looks like Christian Darrisaw screwed it up. But as the broadcast did Greg Olson did a pretty good job of identifying, no, McCarthy's job is to get rid of that ball quickly, because the quicker you get rid of that ball, the easier it is for the offensive lineman to actually release and move forward and, block downfield and stuff like that. It's not quite a screen, but that ball is supposed to be out quick. And so I'm doing him a favor by kind of assuming all of the quick pressures have nothing to do with him. But it seems like at least 2 of those 7, which again, like 28% of all of his dropbacks were quick pressures. That's really high. But it seems like at least 2 of those 7 were related to something involving him or his fault in some way. So that's kind of what I'm grabbing from this game, is that I think that McCarthy improved very slightly a little bit mechanically, and he had a worse game because he's just not getting. And I don't think this is the offense is throwing the ball too deep. There are short receivers. I don't think it's like, hey, there's a bunch of these 7-step dropbacks in the offense. There were 5-step dropbacks. There were some 3-step dropbacks. I don't think that's it. I think he's too slow to read the field, and it's not a depth issue. It's not a passing deep issue. A bunch of people have been really upset that Kevin O'Connell hasn't been running the ball a lot. Well, he listened. This was the most run-heavy first half as a percentage of plays. In fact, I believe the most run-heavy first 3 quarters as a percentage of plays that the Vikings have ever had in the Kevin O'Connell era. They ran the ball, and they ran it at like 5.7 yards a clip in those first 3 quarters, with like a reasonably good success rate, like 48% or something like that.
Yeah, they ran it until they couldn't. They ran it until the score was too high.
Yeah, until it was like they were 3 scores down in the fourth quarter, and you're like, you got to throw the ball. You got to throw the ball.
Yep, that right around the time that it was right around the time that happened, the game stopped being I'm only watching this, and we're putting a 4 box on.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of Jameis. There was a period of time when Jameis Winston had more receiving yards than than Justin Jefferson did.
Yeah, it was 32 off of. Who threw that actually? Sterling Shepard? I don't remember. But
it was not, but yeah, it was ridiculous. There was a time that that Justin Jefferson did not have more yards between the two.
Yeah, so I looked at the worst EPA per dropback since the year 2000 of any Vikings quarterback in an individual game, right? So the worst one, Brad Johnson against the Bears in 2006, week 13. He threw 4 picks in that game. He had a 10.3 passer rating, 2.8 yards per attempt. That was the worst one. Okay, great. Out of the 15 worst games, and there are 414 games in the set, I'm only looking at the 15 worst. McCarthy, who has started in 6 total games, has 3 of those 15. A lot of these guys are young, but McCarthy, like, it's not just that he's like new or that he's young. Like, Teddy Bridgewater appears on this list once. And then you don't see him in the top 20 aside from the one performance he had at number 14, right? 3 times McCarthy appears in the top 15, or I should say bottom 15, right? Like a lot of these guys appear occasionally. 50% of McCarthy's starts appear as some of the worst games ever played by a Vikings quarterback in the modern era of football. Like, it's Spurgeon Wynn type stuff. In fact, he has more games up here than Spurgeon Wynn does. I think he has more than anybody, right? Because we've got Johnson, Castle, Wynn, Ponder, McCarthy, Ponder again, Cousins, Jackson, Rip. Cousins. We got a couple of Cousins in here, right? We got, that's 3. No, that's 2 Cousins so far. Ponder. So we got 3 Ponders. McCarthy, Dobbs, McCarthy, Bridgewater, Cousins. Cousins played a ton more games than McCarthy did. Yeah,
this it's not great. By the way, the person who threw the touchdown to Jameis Winston is Gunnar Olszewski.
Yeah.
Also famous because he played for the Bemidji State Beavers.
That's right. Minnesota football legend Gunnar Olszewski.
NSIC.
It will not shock you. I can say this off the top of my head. It will not shock you to learn that he played for the Patriots.
No. that is I am the opposite of shocked.
Because they have so many former quarterbacks play skill position. That's why, obviously, the reason that would come to mind.
Yeah. Nothing, no other reason. No other reason. So, I mean, do we want to talk about literally anything else? There's some offensive line injuries, it looks like, now as well, that the Vikings will need to be
Donovan Jackson left the game early. Christian Darrisaw went to the medical tent at one point, came back, got whooped, left the game due to injury. I don't know.
They made a big deal about how this was the first game where the offensive line is finally all together.
Yeah, Ryan Kelly comes back, and we got
grand closing.
Yeah, so 2 offensive line injuries. I don't know what the state of that is. 1 quarterback injury, concussion, which, like, mostly people are joking about this being another soft benching, but I do want to get ahead of it. The hits that I saw replayed in reference to this, I think it's pretty clear he got a concussion and that the spotter did a really poor job, because there's one series where he scrambles and gets tackled and his head just hits the turf. And then he seems to potentially have a fencing reaction, which is like a pretty serious sign of a big concussion. And then on the next play, this is a 5-yard completion to TJ Hawkinson. This is all in the fourth quarter, around 5 minutes left. On the next play, as he's completing the pass, he goes to the ground. His head hits the turf again real hard. And then a knee, I believe a Vikings player, but I don't remember for sure. A knee later, like as the play is like collapsing and the pocket is collapsing and stuff like that. He's gotten rid of the ball. A knee hits his head and bounces it back into the turf like someone was playing basketball with it. Like, I am pretty confident this guy definitely got a concussion. This is not like some kind of mystery to me. It just seems like no one spotted it. That's the job of the spotter. And he had concussion symptoms on the way back from Green Bay, which he seemingly self-reported, which is brave. I genuinely think that is a brave thing to do, because a lot of football players in his position would try to play as much as possible, and not continue to present injury problems, because I think he knows this job is not secure. And so to present with another injury, I think, reduces the security of the job. And a lot of players, even if they're playing poorly, would rather just play through it. So I'll give him that. But, oh boy.
Yeah, not great. So I'm just reminded of the Blue Mountain State episode where they refer to the concussion as the C word, and they're not even allowed, like, players aren't even allowed to like whisper. So they've got that sort of thing. So, well, I hate Justice being happy. I really do. There were some fun stats this week, including, and it seemed a bit extreme, but the fact that it was within the conversation is worth noting. That they were going through some listing of the last 25 years of quarterback, and I think one of the only ones that was worse was Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah,
when Jamarcus Russell is getting brought in, and it's not entirely inaccurate. Boy, yeah,
it was what through 6 starts that I think Pardon My Take did this, where they did a quarterback A and a quarterback B, not to like put a shine on the Barstool Sports product, but whatever. And they did, quarterback A, I'll just say it was McCarthy, right? Like the touchdown interception ratio we've seen, the yards like 982 or something like that, immediately recognizable as McCarthy. And then quarterback B just clearly had better statistics, even when you're not given like the attempt number, right? Like better completion percentage, which is not that important. More yards, which we don't know the number of attempts. But the touchdown interception ratio was like way better, took fewer sacks. Okay. And it was Jamarcus Russell, 2007, right? It's not a wonderful place to be. Now, I am pretty confident Russell's EPA per dropback. Actually, no, I'm not confident. Yeah, actually, McCarthy's EPA per dropback through 6 games might be worse. God, Jesus, man. Like, this is like the depths that we're working with, right?
Yeah, this is a guy who used to get copies of tape burned. I keep using my fingers as quotations, getting sent to him, and they were blank DVDs. And he would go back and say, "Oh yeah, I watched it."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I love it. I love the plays that you're drawing up, Coach. That looks great.
Yep, that looks great. Absolutely, let's go with it. And they were blank DVDs. just like this is the man who is basically I say basically responsible for is almost blamed for the reason why the rookie cap changed. It was because they gave the Raiders gave a ridiculous amount of money to this player who turned out to be the biggest bust in NFL draft history.
Yep. While I would say that kind of the Jamarcus Russell influence on, right, the rookie salary cap, right? Like I would say that is a little bit overstated. I would also say, yeah, that clearly played a significant role.
Yeah.
Now okay, so Jamarcus Russell ranks 186th in EPA per dropback through 6 starts. McCarthy ranks 220. There are 232 quarterbacks. Number 232 is our friend Spurgeon Wynn. Number 231 is Nathan Peterman.
We're at Peterman territory, folks.
Yeah, but better than Scott Tolzien and Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Oh, good. I was worried that we were going to be worse than that. So good. I'm glad. Well, while we're on the McCarthy thing, you know what? We're going to hit the mailbag because this game needs to not be discussed any further on any other side of the ball because this is the McCarthy episode. Let's go to Leon, who asks, JJ McCarthy has had a personal quarterback coach since high school.
Has he ever?
How is it that someone with his level of pro football foresight wasn't taught better mechanics earlier in his development? It seems like if a podcaster can identify issues of this form, that any competent coach should have also.
I mean, at least one competent coach has. I assume many Vikings fans aren't willing to call Kevin O'Connell a competent coach, but like, yes, at least one competent coach has. Kevin O'Connell, Greg Olsen readily identified on the broadcast. I believe Tom Brady has referenced it. So it seems like it is genuine that these problems of this form are real, right? Dan Orlovsky did a pretty good job on ESPN Live or NFL Live on ESPN detailing those problems. It sounds like JT O'Sullivan has had kind of similar criticisms of the mechanics of the form. So it seems like the problems of the form are something that we're operating from as the premise, as the truth claim. So how is it that this private quarterback coach couldn't figure it out? Well, I've got like essentially 2 answers. One, the private quarterback coach market is fundamentally broken. Now, I don't know if this guy, I think it's Greg Holcomb. I have no idea if this guy is a grifter or he's bad at his job. And in some sense, he can't be bad at his job because it's really difficult to bring a guy into the NFL. So, you know, I can't say that he specifically is, but I can say broadly that there are a ton of grifters in the private quarterback coach market. And it's really difficult as like a parent or a kid to figure out if the guy that you're talking to is real, is like a genuine good quarterback coach. And some quarterback coaches are bad quarterback coaches who happen to have just kind of hit on a guy, right? So like, and I don't know who Patrick Mahomes' private quarterback coach was growing up, so this is not me saying that guy is that. But like if you end up with Patrick Mahomes, right, who has insane elasticity, who is adapting baseball mechanics into the way that he throws, right? Because I think he played shortstop. Baseball mechanics into the way that he throws and does a bunch of unique stuff that no one else can replicate. You are now, and you had nothing to do with that, you are now able to market that you were Patrick Mahomes' quarterback coach and you can name your price, right? And there's a bunch that have never placed anybody in the NFL that have a pretty big market because a big part of marketing is not what your resume is, but how confident you sound. And if you've got the ability to string together a bunch of, words involving biomechanics and kinesiology, and you talk about stuff like biokinetics, you just like make up words that seem like they're related to like muscle groups, you probably can do some stuff, right? You don't have to be good at being a quarterback coach. So part one is that we have no idea if Greg Holcomb is any good. And again, I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying we don't know, right? So that could be part of it. Part two, I did listen to some of the stuff that he said on various podcast appearances he had before the season. This is like a week ago, like when his stuff was blowing up a little bit. I wanted to listen to the way he talked about quarterbacks. And then
the fact that we know his name at all
is not wonderful. That's not good. But I listened to some of it, and I can't say this with any certainty. What I'm telling you is what I am gathering from the way that he has talked about trading quarterbacks. So it seems as if, I'm going to hedge my language a lot, it seems as if a lot of the training that he did with McCarthy was to make sure, and it seemed like there's a heavy focus of the training, was to make sure that when McCarthy didn't have a clean base, that he would be able to throw, which is important, right? A lot of your throws are not going to have a perfect situation that you're going to be able to throw from. This is actually one of the reasons that NFL teams value arm strength so much. It's not because, I mean, it is also because, but it's not solely because more arm strength means you can throw it deep. It's not solely because more arm strength, and this is a more important element, allows you to tighten windows, right? Allows you to throw into tight windows and beat NFL speed for NFL defenders that are closing down on these windows. Those are the primary reasons you might think of, and those are elements that matter here. But what arm strength does for you is it reduces your margin for error in a lot of situations. So let's say you're late to a read. Having more arm strength means the ball can still get there on time. Let's say your arm has been kind of pulled in another direction because of a defender, or you have to move the ball around to protect it, and now you have to throw at a weird angle. Well, who's the best at throwing at weird angles? Matthew Stafford, Patrick Mahomes. Incredible arm strength, right? That's part of it, right? So arm strength does a lot for you to make up for other deficiencies that may be going on. And it seems as if one of the areas where Holcomb was training McCarthy was to make sure that whenever he was off platform or off angle, he had the ability to throw it. Now, it seems as if the way McCarthy internalized these lessons, whether or not they were taught this way, it seems as if the way McCarthy internalized these lessons was, one, to locate most of his throwing within his upper body, which is to say he doesn't generate a lot of power through his legs, it seems like, right? His legs are kind of just along for the ride. That's why he twists a lot when he throws. But two, that he doesn't throw with multiple speeds. We've talked about this a ton. This was a discussion even before the season started, right? People were talking about layering throws and throwing with touch. This was on his scouting report. People talked about it before the Vikings even drafted him. He's a one-speed quarterback. He's throwing fastballs all the time. Well, now it's a problem, right? And when Tom Brady was casting the game, he was talking about an A ball and a B ball and a C ball. And then later he referred to it as like a one ball, a two ball through. It doesn't matter, right? But he's talking about different ways to throw a ball based off of the context of the play and where you need and how you needed the ball to get to the receiver. He's not doing that. It's almost, I'm not saying every time, right? But it's almost always these like bullet passes that are all arm and fire with full speed. And I believe that some of the training that is at play here is playing a role in the way that he's approaching the game. Because if you don't throw with your base, if you don't throw with your legs, and you're only throwing with your arm, you have a lot less of a physical understanding of essentially how hard you're throwing. And so it just makes sense to keep throwing at full speed so you don't undercut it or make a mistake. But two, like now you can't use your arm to guide the ball as much. And so you're losing precision. So you're throwing at 100% speed because you're all arm, and you're throwing without precision because you're all arm. And that has allowed you to get out of dicey situations where you don't have your legs out underneath you, right? And it helped him in the first week, in the week one Chicago game. He threw like an excellent ball while his legs weren't there because he has good arm strength, right? That I think is what seems to be at play here. So I don't know that Holcomb is necessarily a bad quarterbacks coach. I think the way that he's conducted himself would make me, were I in the market for one, probably move to a different guy. But it seems as if his emphasis has magnified some of the issues that we're seeing with McCarthy. Yeah.
Next question is going to be from Rock, who asks, I get how insane it is to be calling for the understated backup quarterback. But with that said, What did you see from the Brosmer preseason tape? Multiple beat reporters on record saying he appeared further along than McCarthy.
Yeah. So I'm going to, in the show notes, link to the story that Matt Freeze wrote
Good.
about Matt Fries.
Me being snarky about a pronunciation is great, by the way.
Yeah. Thanks to all the Patreon listeners out there. I love our poutine listeners. But no, I was going to link to Max Brosmer's story he wrote in the preseason, but also so to get a good understanding of some of the things I'm talking about. And I don't 100% agree with some of the things that he says, but I mostly do, right? So one of the things that we see is how quickly in the preseason Brosmer made decisions. So we would see a very fast time to throw. In fact, I should probably just look up his time to throw because I wrote fast time to throw in my notes in answering this question, but like we have the data, right? Like it's available to us. Time Max Brosmer. I'll just look at the player page. Passing preseason. All right, time to throw 2.58 seconds. So actually, this actually better matches my my take, which was that he has a faster time to throw. But actually, I didn't love his throwing because it wasn't at the top of the drop. He would always hitch a little bit before he threw. So the ball comes out really quick. And I think the reason that it seems like a much faster time to throw, but it is only pretty fast time to throw, not outstandingly fast, but pretty fast time to throw, is because his release is so fast. He has a lightning quick release with the ball, which is cool, right? Because I think that reduces the likelihood that defenders kind of see when the ball is coming out and close on it. It reduces the likelihood that defenders get to bat passes at the line of scrimmage because they jump up essentially at the beginning of a quarterback's drop back or at the beginning of the arm motion, stuff like that, right? But he's getting to the top of his drop. He has made his decision, and then he waits a half tick before he throws. Not a ton, but a half tick before he goes, and way faster than McCarthy does, based off of his preseason against McCarthy's regular season. And that's going to be important when I get kind of a little bit deeper into this. But I do want to mention, I think a lot of people think of him as extremely accurate. I would say he is mostly accurate. He did suffer from some drops in the preseason, so I don't want to say his like completion percentage in the preseason tells us everything. But like 60% completion rate, 9.9 ADOT, which is very deep downfield. So a 60% completion rate with that in mind is actually not that bad. When you account for drops, his adjusted accuracy is like 66%. Still not that high. Even though we should account for the fact it's a pretty deep depth of target. But I don't think that it is the ball placement is all there, right? Which is not that different from McCarthy. Now, my preseason evaluation of McCarthy was that he generally did a pretty good job of getting the ball to the receiver, but his ball placement within that framework was pretty bad. At the moment, he's not doing a very good job of getting the ball to the receiver. So it could be when you get to the regular season, the small ball placement concerns become larger accuracy concerns. But right now, I think he's throwing to the wrong shoulder a lot. I think he's not maximizing yak a lot. I think he's inviting defenders into the play a lot. But it is generally pretty accurate, right? So lightning quick release, making decisions faster, and okay accuracy and ball placement. His arm strength isn't quite where McCarthy's is, but we're still seeing a pretty deep depth of target. And I think he's kind of making up for that a little bit with the fast release. So, I mentioned that one of the ways to make up for a slow release is to have incredible arm strength and so that the ball arrives at the target sooner. Well, if you don't have one, you better have a fast release. And he seems to have fast release, right? I don't think we saw much evidence in the preseason of what his movement capability is. My understanding, I didn't watch a ton of Gophers football last year, if I'm being honest. My understanding is that it's not nearly up there with McCarthy's. So that's something to keep in mind. But the thing that really got me about all of this, right? So he's making decisions quickly. Very often he's beginning his throwing motion before the receiver gets open, which is what we typically associate with anticipation. I would say his anticipation is pretty good. I don't want to overstate it. But I actually don't know how good it is. And by that, I mean, I think he trusts his first read a lot. He was throwing to his first read a ton in the preseason. And I wonder if he relies on it too much, because it seems like he's making a decision before the snap. And in the preseason, we see way fewer disguises. We see way fewer defensive disguises. And so this is a particular tendency that could be uniquely exploitable when we move from the preseason to the regular season. So the question is his anticipation genuine? As in, is he genuinely reading the field and processing the play? Or is he guessing based off of what his pre-snap read was, which during the preseason would be accurate because there's not as much rotation in disguise, but during the season may not be accurate. So I want to see whether it is educated guesswork or genuine anticipation. I want to see if he does have post-snap diagnosis. I don't know. This is not me saying he doesn't have it. This is me saying I have no idea if he has it, but this is an area of concern and vulnerability when we move from excellent preseason play to regular play. And again, I think the arm strength stuff is more likely to catch up to him because in the preseason, you're playing against guys who are about to get cut. Those defensive backs run a 4.6 instead of guys who are starting, who might run a 4.2 or 4.3 or at the slowest a 4.4, right? So the arm strength issue may not have seemed like an issue in the preseason, but could develop into one during the regular season. But that is kind of what I'm seeing, and it wouldn't shock me if in that environment someone looks better in camp. I don't know. I'm really curious how that's all going to play out.
Let's go to our next question, which is from Peter, who asks, hypothetical one, let's dodge reality. Which of these Vikings quarterbacks would have given them more of a chance at Lambeau? Spurgeon Wynn, Josh Freeman, Joe Webb, John David Booty, or Ryan Wright?
Ryan Wright is hilarious. So I think the answer unambiguously here is Joe Webb, depending on who's calling the plays, right? Like those first two drives against the Packers in the playoff game were pretty good. And then they stopped running the ball with him. They were just like, hey, man, throw the ball. Do it with your left hand. I don't care.
Why? There's no rules against a dog playing basketball.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I would say probably Joe Webb, assuming you had the play caller who could take advantage of it. And despite everything people are saying about Kevin O'Connell, I think he used the play caller to kind of get the most out of Joe Webb. After that, I'd say the only other quarterback on this list that could do it is Josh Freeman. He is a Kevin O'Connell type quarterback in a lot of ways, right? He throws deep. He kind of doesn't care about getting hit. He loves to give his receivers a chance. He doesn't have a ton of pocket presence, another classic Kevin O'Connell quarterback trait. I don't know.
He shares an enthusiasm for space travel, like Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that his ball destroyed destroyed the space station.
Yeah. So his passes demolish space stations, and Joshua Dobbs goes up there to fix them. Synergy.
This is why it works. It's a circle. Lurking asks, how do we get them to stop filming JJ McCarthy walking around on the field alone pregame? The less we see of him on a football field, the better. I'm going to say ouch to JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, woof, that's rough. Yeah, I mean, he's developed a whole persona about the way that he conducts himself pregame. I say that like the way he conducts himself, like it's a criticism, but it's not. That's supposed to be a neutral sounding statement. But like, you know, he does the whole meditation thing and that's like unique. And so people want to follow him around. It's like no longer interesting. If he's winning, what a fun little story. If he's losing, it's like, dog, what are we doing? Man, play some Metallica or something. This isn't working.
Yeah. Raul asks, is it safe to say that we've reached the end of the quote competitive rebuild since Kwesi took over? Many thought such a thing was not possible. After 2 wildcard losses in 4 years, do you think the rebuild was successful or not? I suppose the long-term mystery at quarterback doesn't help.
the competitive part of the competitive rebuild had been engaged, right? Like you were competitive, you didn't win the competition, but you were competitive, right? So the competitive part is competitive, but the rebuild part had not been engaged because there's no quarterback in the future. And now we're in the rebuild phase and they're not competitive. And so I would argue they never accomplished they never accomplished the full phrase within that like goal matrix. Because the point of that phrase is that you can constantly, what is it? What did Pete Carroll say? I don't know if it was Pete Carroll. We don't rebuild, we reload, or so. It is a footballism. It doesn't have to be. It could be anybody. We don't rebuild, we reload. I think Pete Carroll was like win forever or whatever, right? That's the idea. The Vikings never reloaded. Are we kidding? Signing Jonathan Allen doesn't count as reloading. That's nuts. No, so they never did the competitive rebuild because there was no competitive part during the rebuild, and there was no rebuilding part during the competitive part. They unfortunately were not a unique snowflake, and they went through the cycle that a football team typically goes through, which is that they're good and then they're bad, is what happened.
I like how I did a quick Google search just to try to provide some sort of like, oh, well, no, I'm going to be stat boy for a moment. Actually, this was said by blah. It's been said by a number of different
Yeah,
people.
that makes sense. Yeah, it's a footballism.
Yeah, Bino Cook said it in reference to the Miami Hurricanes in '91.
Jesus, okay.
Apparently, but there's also instance of it appearing in a newspaper in 1973.
Wow.
So yeah,
but that was a really deep dive for how quick that was.
So there's quite a bit of history on that particular topic.
No reload, really?
Yep. As it turns out,
all right.
Kenneth Allen asks, "Do you think Kevin O'Connell deserves to try again with another quarterback? JJ is so bad that it doesn't seem to be entirely Kevin O'Connell's fault, but his whole reputation is based on QB whispering, and he staked his reputation specifically on teams failing quarterbacks and not vice versa. Assuming JJ is done, should he get another?"
I mean, I personally think so. I'm very sympathetic to people who don't think so, but like my approach to this is not like, how do we determine whether or not someone like deserves X or Y thing? And more, what is the most likely scenario that's going to produce a Super Bowl win? I think the most likely scenario is that you keep Kevin O'Connell and give him a different quarterback. I think it's the most likely scenario. I think that having succeeded beyond your wildest imagination with like 3 or 4 quarterbacks and then failing with the one. Now, obviously, the one is the one you have the most investment in, is the most long-term potential. You know, that's the one where the biggest success is huge and the biggest failure is enormous, right? I'm not saying it's just 1 of 5 or 1 of 4 or whatever. But I would say, like, failing with one does not erase the successes with the others. And I want to use that to make the argument that it is more likely than not that once he finds a quarterback that has capability, that he can maximize that guy. And so I would say it is smart to keep Kevin O'Connell. Does he deserve it? I don't know how to speak to that, because there's 2 elements at play here. One is, how well is he coaching this guy that he has? Maybe he's coaching this guy as well as can possibly be coached. In a different coaching staff, he'd have negative 0.9 EPA per dropback instead of negative 0.67 or whatever, right? Maybe he would be worse in every other circumstance than every other coach. Maybe. There's some improvements he can make. We talked about it a little bit. The other element, though, is not how he's coaching, but his role in evaluation. And it would be shocking to me if he did not play an outsized role in the selection of the quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Not just because this is what head coaches always do. They always get involved. Like Mike Zimmer, a defensive-minded coach, was very heavily involved in selecting Teddy. And then after that was not very involved in selecting Kirk Cousins. He made that very well known. But he was extremely involved in selecting Teddy. And he's not even a quarterback guy. My understanding is that Leslie Frazier played a pretty significant role in Christian Ponder. Okay. That's a defensive guy. So with that in mind, I would be shocked if the quarterback guy did not put it all out on the table for the quarterbacks that he liked in this draft, which included allegedly Drake May, right? So from a deserving standpoint, he didn't get saddled with McCarthy, right? He chose McCarthy. So in some sense, he doesn't deserve to kind of see this through because he made the mistake that put the Vikings in this spot in the first place. But to me, it's not about who deserves what or whatever. I don't care about that much. What maximizes the likelihood that the Vikings win a Super Bowl? I think it's keeping Kevin O'Connell.
Next question is from Bob the Bull Sharif, who asks, for Arif's stats and team building corner, using RBSDM and comparing all quarterbacks since 2016, the combination of EPA and CPOE stat shows J.J. McCarthy as 136th out of 151 qualifying quarterbacks since Sean Mannion ranks 133rd. As the whole point of the soft rebuild was to have a rookie quarterback contract to allow spending on the rest of the roster, where would the Vikings have been better off? Or rather, would the Vikings have been better off signing Mannion to league minimum to be their starter? Boy.
I would argue probably not for two reasons. One, I believe that is a stat that regresses downward instead of upward. We talk a lot about regression as in regression to the mean, and we kind of assume that the mean that you're regressing to is maybe like close to league average, which is actually not what that phrase is most appropriately used for. But rather, the mean is the player's true quality of play, which you can usually determine based off of a career of statistics. And so when a player has an outlier season, we'll say, oh, he'll regress to his mean, which is not the league mean necessarily. That made, there was a really funny, and I still can't tell if this is like a Reddit joke or whether someone was taking this seriously. But after Patrick Mahomes' first, big season 2018, where he had 50 touchdowns or something, they regressed him to the mean and they just used the league average as the mean. And so actually Patrick Mahomes was secretly only kind of good after 2018. That's not the most appropriate use of that. To me, Sean Mannion's true mean is actually lower than where his career numbers have put him, because when you have a backup quarterback enter a game, there's just a bunch of gimmicks that you can do to kind of make them more comfortable, do things well for them. You run a short menu of plays, all kinds of things that you do with a backup quarterback that work well in short spurts, right? Remember when Joe Webb was the backup and he entered games and it was like, Jesus, this is working outstandingly well. And then the more Joe Webb you got, the more you were like, okay, I guess this isn't really happening. Same with the Pastronaut, right? It was like, okay, it turns out, building a whole ship out of this is not really the same. I think Sean Mannion is probably pretty similar. This is a guy who, again, is very similar to a lot of Kevin O'Connell quarterbacks in that he's very aggressive. But unlike a lot of Kevin O'Connell quarterbacks, actually kind of like Nick Mullins, he just doesn't really have the arm for it. And so both he and Mullins will just take chances. And this is an offense that invites you to do that thing. And we're seeing now what happens when you don't have the facilities for that, for whatever reason. McCarthy has the arm, right? But he's light on these throws and, he doesn't have the accuracy. Mannion just doesn't have the arm. So I think he would probably regress down. And so the second reason I would give is that I think one of the reasons the locker room hasn't blown up yet, aside from what I would regard as pretty good stewardship from Kevin O'Connell thus far, subject to change at any moment the locker room blows up. But also, it is at least a little bit more understandable from a locker room perspective that the rookie is not working out. But you bring in Sean Mannion and you're like, we're going to pay that guy nothing and he's going to start. Everyone's mad immediately. That's not working for you. Justin Jefferson, who has played through injury and we had this conversation about his work ethic a couple weeks ago, whatever. But honestly, this guy has put so much out there that he hasn't needed to put out there in seasons that have been lost. And I think you do something like that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my hamstring's acting up. Sorry." I can't imagine that you're getting full player participation for the rest of the season in that scenario.
Next question is going to be from Andy, who asks, is there anything JJ McCarthy could do performance-wise that would cause Kevin O'Connell to bench him before the end of the season? Well, let's just end the question here. Get concussed.
Get concussed. Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah. Max asks, did you notice a different role for Turner this game versus when the Gink was out? Seemed like he played better, and maybe they just had him be a normal edge guy this game. Maybe I also just made it up. Who knows or cares at this point? The Vikings season is over, and I'm sad.
Why even answer this question? No, not really. I think it's a fair question to ask, by the way. But in games where he is like a full participant, right? And in games where either Grenard or Van Ginkel are not playing, which unfortunately is quite a number of games this season, he is spending like on a particular passing play, right? He is about twice as likely to rush the passer as he is to drop into coverage. And that is very kind of similar to what we imagine Van Ginkel's, I say what we imagine, what Van Ginkel's role kind of is. But when Van Ginkel was in, he was doing the same thing early in the season. Now, the only game where that was definitively not true was the Chicago Bears game. Not the Green Bay game, just the Chicago Bears game, where on 37 passing downs that he played on, he rushed the passer 31 times. The most he has in a single game and the highest proportion that he has. He also did this against Cleveland, 25-9, but not to quite the degree, right? It seems as if like the way that he lines up, like where he lines at the snap, what he's asked to do post snap, has been pretty similar from game to game to game. He has played essentially outside linebacker on the line of scrimmage about 300 of his 450 odd snaps on defense this year, 460. It's about 310 of them have been like outside linebacker. He has played like 6 technique, which is like right outside the offensive tackle shoulder, on about 110 of those snaps. And then he's played like a little bit as like a overhang defender, which PFF calls slot corner. He has played off ball in the box a couple of times, and that happened much earlier at the beginning of the season, right, without Van Ginkel. So in that sense, that's kind of closer to his role changing, but he still does a little bit of off ball stuff from time to time. So I would say if his role has changed, it's been minimal and somewhat gradual. Only his week 2 game, kind of the Vikings used him in the way that we think of Van Ginkel as being used. The rest of the year, it's been kind of more versatile than Jonathan Grenard and less versatile than Andrew Van Ginkel. So I think he's playing. I think he's been playing well. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I don't think he's playing to his pick quality, right? I don't think he's playing like a mid-first round pick, but I think he's playing well. And we're kind of seeing that appear in plays that appear on highlight reels and box scores. But I don't think that this is unexpected, given the level of play that he's had so far. It just didn't appear as sacks. Now, I'm not saying that the last 2 games haven't been outstanding for him. They have been. Those are the best 2 games that he's put together. But I'm saying that this trajectory isn't sudden to me.
Let's go to our next question from Francis Ford Copium, who asks, for our Reefs, not about Etsy Wish's corner. Is the Coach of the Year award potentially cursed? Looking through the winners since 2000, besides a few greats, obvious outliers to throw us off the trail.
Right, of course.
It reads like a who's who of coaches who have crashed and burned. Brian Daboll, Matt Nagy. Is winning the award a portent of bad things to come?
I'm curious because Kevin Stefanski won that award, right? I'm curious if we count that as a crash and burn because he like still super has that job.
He does. I wouldn't say was supportive of the quarterback decision that happened.
Right.
So
yeah. So I presumably is maybe the wrong word. I maybe anticipate him keeping that job through let's call them the turmoils. Up until you're out of Deshaun Watson cap hell, you're in the turmoils. Yeah, sure. I think the Coach of the Year award is much like the Sports Illustrated curse or the Madden cover curse, in that it's not a real curse, But to appear there, you have to have an outlier year of some sort. Now, for people, the Sports Illustrated magazine cover curse is so old. I think a lot of people listening might not know about it, but like that used to be a thing where you would appear on the cover of Sports Illustrated and then your career would flame out after. And people called it a curse, ignoring like the 70 times like Michael Jordan was on the cover, right? In the same thing with the Madden cover, and this is a lot less true now, but like you would appear on the Madden cover and then you just have a bad year. Like Peyton Hillis is the perfect example of that, which like he won the award exclusively because he was an outlier award. He got the cover because he was exclusively, because he won, I think, the only time they've done a fan voting contest to see who would be on the cover. And everyone was really excited about this like white running back in Cleveland that got like 1,000 yards. And like we all knew, like you watched Peyton Hillis, you're like, that's nice. But it's like if Cam Scattaboo wasn't crazy, right? Like, not just to compare white running backs to white running backs, but like it's like Brandon Jacobs was less strong, right? It's just like, okay, that's probably not going to happen again because you don't have the thing that makes this work all the time, whether it's Cam Scattaboo being crazy or Brandon Jacobs being strong, right? It's just you're just doing the thing. You're not that fast. You're not that explosive. Your vision is all right. That's not going to happen again. And it didn't. And that's why everyone voted for him in the first place. But like you appear there because you've had an unusually good year. And I think the same thing with Coach of the Year. People tend to win Coach of the Year because no one thought you could do it. Why did they think you couldn't do it? Because you hadn't done it and the team you're on sucks. And then suddenly you luck into a 10-win season. The Browns win their only playoff game in the century, I want to say. Something like that. And you're Coach of the Year. And like, that's the same Browns roster that didn't make the playoffs. That's going to crash and burn. So, yeah, the Coach of the Year award is rewarding you for beating expectations. Well, the expectations existed for a reason, and you're coming down to it. So this is just we were just talking about regression to the mean. This is a regression to the mean indicator.
Not great. Next question is from Cruz with Al and Alma. For Arif's unlicensed psychology corner, it is well known that a support network and a strong variety of coping skills are necessary to help manage some chronic mental illnesses. What are some coping mechanisms, healthy or unhealthy, that you can recommend to Vikings fans who refuse to turn away from the utter carnage of this tragic derailment of a season?
So James and I have both lost people to addiction specifically. So that would be like a classic answer to the unhealthy coping mechanism, but probably don't. Also, I just watched Evan Ettinger's 2 videos on him being addicted to kratom, which, by the way, incredible videos if you haven't watched them.
I thought you were about to say kratom was incredible for a moment, and I was just like, "Well,
whoa! We just took a left turn here."
This episode's all right. Let's talk about it.
No, Evan Ettinger was addicted to kratom for like 5 or 6 years or something like that, and he got out of it, and he made a video 1 year after he'd been 1 year sober. Really great 2 videos on it. 1, his video on it, and then 2, responding to a bunch of comments about it. So that's kind of like the answer that you classically give. Oh, and a healthy coping mechanism: drink a lot. And it's like, I don't know. I'm a little uncomfortable now, but blame others for your problems, I think, is the answer to this one, right? Like, I feel like, yeah. I mean, we're kind of already doing this a little bit, right? Because like before everyone had just kind of stopped having fun with excuses for McCarthy, there was like a ton of like, well, his receivers dropped the ball a lot, which that did happen, right? Like, I'm not going to ignore that. But like, yeah, Kevin O'Connell's calling the wrong plays. He's actually only calling the good offense when Carson Wentz is on the field. And, his offensive line isn't healthy. And you just like keep on blaming other elements for McCarthy's bad play. And I just take that and put it into your real life so that it will affect your loved ones, instead of blaming a coach that will never really be able to experience your unfair thoughts and images.
I was also going to suggest that you could become a bandwagon Cowboys fan.
That's oh god, oh my stomach just
Yep, I know.
We're
going for unhealthy.
But shouldn't a bandwagon fan have shouldn't they be winning? Like, shouldn't you pick a fandom?
They won this weekend.
They won. Yeah, I guess. Is anyone excited about the trajectory of the Cowboys, James?
No, probably not. But they're in for a fun game on Thursday. Yannick asked, I asked this in the summer. Arif picked Reichert, and I wondered if it has changed. The question that was asked was, who will be off the team sooner, Will Reichert or JJ McCarthy?
Okay, I will say I was very open-ended on JJ McCarthy's outcomes, but I was mostly positive because I was like, surely Kevin O'Connell wouldn't have jettisoned Sam Darnold for. I should have added Daniel Jones, it turns out, to that list, but Sam Darnold for this guy if he wasn't good. I was obviously a little optimistic, but I was pretty open-ended on the outcomes because we don't know. But I was pretty negative on Will Reichert because I think we were just giving excuses for his post-injury kicking performance, which was not spectacular after he come back from injury. And B, his performance in college to me did not strike me as representative of the types of kickers who have been successful coming out of college. And also, it seems like there was kind of a mechanical problem with the way he was kicking that would suggest long-term problems. So I was like, I don't know that Will Reichert actually has it. It's a small sample, but I'm mega wrong. Until the sample gets bigger. We'll see. But I am mega wrong, and Will Reichert is crushing it. And that's after. So one of the things that I was talking about is that we were not doing a very good job early in the season of accounting for the fact that everybody's kick returns look good. And so we got kind of tricked into thinking that the Vikings kick returns looked good. And they didn't. They looked bad. But, we can account for the fact that everyone in the world is kicking better now. Every kicker is kicking better now. And so you have to keep that in mind when you evaluate, a guy who's just crushing 59-yard field goals multiple times. But even after you do that, this dude is killing it. He's killing it. I said all that, and then I just checked his PFF grade. It's number 2. It's between the two consensus best kickers in the NFL right now, Brandon Aubrey and Chris Boswell. They're 1 and 3, right? Okay, that's even better than I thought. I thought he was having a really good season. He's having a great season. He has attempted more field goals from 50 plus than, according to PFF, everybody except Joey Sly, which, that's a Tennessee Titans kicker. He might as well not exist. And has made 80% of them, which means he also leads the league in made 50-plus yard field goals. Now, Chase McLaughlin is 100% on 50-plus yard field goals, but he is only 50% on 40 to 49-yard field goals, whereas Commander Reichert here is 3 for 3 on them. So, they flipped places in terms of my preseason evaluation of them. And I think, honestly, as much as the kickers have cursed the Vikings, I think we all would have liked it to be the other way around. Not that that's this guy's fault or anything like that, but
if we're going tradition,
right.
What would be great is if Reichert just used his salary for this year on a campaign to get the NFL to just admit that it hit a cable in Dublin.
It'd be so funny. I'm really confident it didn't, but that would be so funny.
Just sets out a series of videos loose change.
Yeah, like Zapruder film type video. But here's the thing: the Zapruder film on the loose change videos, they're of their time, right? They're very the footage that you're getting is you can't get better based on the tech. But here's the thing: Will Reichert could use AI to make the video say what he wants them to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't realize we're screwed. Our documentaries are cooked now, and we're done for video wise. And Will Reichert should use that to his advantage before people just don't trust videos anymore.
Yeah, Also, the whole message of the video could just be, well, if it didn't hit a cable, why not release the video from the cable?
Why not release the Skycam cut?
Yeah, why not release the Skycam video to prove that I didn't hit it? It surely would shake.
Hashtag release the Skycam cut.
Exactly. This is where we're at. And if I wasn't confident that Libsyn would be very angry if I included a hashtag in an episode title, that would be it. Quest64 asks, with the Mason-Jones combo averaging 5 yards a carry and most of the game being one score, why do you think the Vikings, not just yesterday, so quickly go away from the run and screens, which typically help young quarterbacks?
I would argue that yesterday they did a ton to stick with the run. So I would say I think we've applied a previous criticism to this game unfairly. You're down 3 scores in the fourth quarter. You got to throw the ball. That's it. Period. Why did they not run the ball in previous games? It's because that's not what Kevin O'Connell does. That's not a good reason. That is probably the reason. The NFL has been moving away from running the ball more and more, and has gotten, generally speaking, more efficient as a product of that. But since about, I want to say 2020, and that's the pandemic year, so like all of our numbers are kind of screwed up. But it seems like since 2020, offensive efficiency has gone down. But I think some of that is in response to the fact that NFL teams have, for one of the first times, maybe, I want to take a look at the numbers actually to be sure of this, have started running the ball more again. So it seems as if, and again, throwing the ball is more efficient than running the ball, but that's not the decision you're making. You're making a decision based off of all of the ways it impacts your ability to consecutively make decisions, right? A lot of the way we initially discussed running versus passing was in this kind of static game theory sense, where you had one decision and you're going to pass the ball on this play or you're going to run the ball on this play. That's your one decision. But we didn't, I think, account for all of the game theoretic implications of iterating this game over and over and over again. I'm not saying we didn't account for it. A lot of people talked about it. It's very unfair of me to say it like that. But rather that we had, I think, anticipated wherever that would decrease the efficiency of passing to be a little bit further down in the pass-heavy spectrum than it actually turned out to be. So we are running the ball a little bit more, and Kevin O'Connell is not part of that group of people. But there is a solid foundation for throwing as often as he does, and he comes from like a Rams organization that has been very forward-thinking about these kinds of things. Now, the Rams themselves now do run the ball a little bit more, but the way that Rams team has proliferated coaches throughout the NFL, that includes not just, like Zach Robinson and Kevin O'Connell, but also like Brandon Staley, who is like supposed to be the super analytics forward coach that would love to have a light box on defense and would love to throw the ball all the time, and thought like running the ball well didn't mean it didn't have any effect on play action because that's what the data told us and stuff like that. Which is like fine. Like the data does tell us that. But I would say that is the environment that he emerges from, where throwing the ball is just more efficient, unless you have someone like JJ McCarthy, in which case it is less efficient. But it is pretty rarely less efficient. Like on a yards per play basis, Adrian Peterson's 2012 season was only a little bit more efficient than Christian Ponder's 2012 season, which is insane, right? One of the greatest running back seasons of all time, paired with one of the most frustrating quarterback performances in recent memory. And the running is only slightly more. Like, that's the degree of difference we're talking about and why you would throw the ball more. Now, it just so happens McCarthy is playing so poorly and the running game is doing well enough that that's not going to be true all the time. But I think the reason that he didn't do it in previous games is because, like, it is generally better to throw the ball. It's just where you strike that balance is sometimes hard to find, especially if you end up at like a somewhat pass heavy approach, and then it's the fourth quarter and you're down 2 scores, and then you start passing the ball a lot, you're going to end up with a game where you have 43 dropbacks and 9 runs that initially only leaned slightly pass heavy, but in the end skewed so heavily towards the pass that it looks so crazy that you only ran the ball 11 times or whatever it was. So that's another element to keep in mind, is that we can't just look at the game end running numbers and passing numbers in order to kind of take a look at how run heavy or pass heavy someone is.
Let's go to Big Ale, who asks, with the errors by Miles Price, does Isaiah Rodgers get to return punts and kicks now to help Price develop, or keep Price since the season is meaningless, and hope he learns by doing?
Man, a lot of learning by doing this season, huh? I don't know. It would be fun. The problem is Isaiah Rodgers is now too important to the defense now that their only cornerback depth is on the practice squad. They waived Dwight McGlothern. He's on the practice squad now. And so you've got like Fabian Moreau and Dwight McGlothern. Jeff Okudah's on IR. Blackman got traded. I don't know. It's just, you have a depth problem at the position that you're having Isaiah Rodgers. Like, it's probably better, but like I can see why you wouldn't do it. It's really frustrating to like say in the preseason, like, hey, I don't really like how Miles Price is doing all of this because I think it's going to be dangerous. And then for like the first 6 or 7 games, be like, man, I was really wrong. What a great move. And then for him to just do all this, like as soon as you started believing, just do all the stuff that you were worried about. They shouldn't have trusted that the guy who was doing bozo plays in the preseason wouldn't do them during the regular season. They should have had Isaiah Rodgers do all of this from the beginning. But yeah, have him return punts and kicks. I don't really care about developing. Developing? What are you talking about? No, you can just cut him.
Yeah. Mailman asks, would Minnesota go back in time and hire Jim Harbaugh if they knew that not hiring him would inspire an epic revenge tour that culminated with convincing Kwesi that J.J. McCarthy was a real quarterback?
I don't know that hiring Jim Harbaugh does not lead to Minnesota Vikings not grabbing J.J. That feels like more likely, actually. And I'm speaking from a place where it's 100% likely, right? Because the Vikings did grab him. But somehow Jim Harbaugh would make it more likely that they grab him. I don't see that world existing at all. Unless he convinces Sam Darnold to say if he can coach Sam Darnold the way that O'Connell, which that's not I think they get. I think if they end up with the number 1 pick, they end up with J.J. McCarthy. That's how much Harbaugh seems to love this dude.
Yeah, remember all the rumors about
trading for Justin? That was nuts.
Yeah, that. VH Cadet asks, question for Arif's quarterback corner. With JJ entering concussion protocol, does Max Brosmer come out and ball, or does this lead to the Vikings trading for Trey Lance next year and Lance winning them a Super Bowl just to spite Arif?
There's a limit to how effective spite quarterbacking seems to work, because like Carson Wentz could only do so much, right?
Yeah, his wax wings melted pretty quickly.
Yeah, and Carson Wentz has had some good games in the NFL. Like Trey Lance doesn't even have that. Yeah, Trey Lance barely has games, period. Like I don't just mean the NFL, like high school, college. He hasn't thrown, like we talk a lot about how JJ McCarthy doesn't have that much experience because of the number of passes that he's thrown in college, which is fair. But man, you compare that to Trey Lance going all the way back to high school, and that guy has not thrown a pass. It seems like he's doing like 300 passes before he entered the NFL total. This is not, nope.
Let's go to Skimble Shanks the Railway Cat, who asks, now that week 12 is wrapping up, it's time to cut another 6 teams.
Oh no, I forgot about this.
As a reminder, the Jets, Raiders, Dolphins, Browns, Cowboys, and Saints were eliminated after week 6. Who is on the chopping block now, and is there any way the Vikings avoid it? No. Vikings are absolutely at the top of the list. So my thought are the Vikings and the Falcons out first.
All right, well, no. Let's construct the whole category, right? So I think the Miami Dolphins are on here. I think Cleveland and Cincinnati are too funny. I'm going to keep them. No, that we already got rid of Cleveland, so Cincinnati is too funny. I'll put them down anyway. Just as like a potential, right? Houston, I'm not going to put down. Did we get rid of Tennessee? We're going to get rid of Tennessee. Because I think it was just like Cam Ward is kind of too fun to hang around with. We got rid of the Raiders, right? Yeah, we did. Oh, the Giants for sure. I'm going to keep Washington because they're fun. Minnesota, we already put down.
Now, the thing with the Giants, though, is that this is all vibes based.
It is, but they don't have the vibes guys now.
I mean,
okay, Jameis, I understand, but like
the Jameis scoring a touchdown like that, like
okay, well,
they're at least entertaining. I think that they should be in the B level of this.
That's fine. We're just putting together the initial list of candidates,
right?
And then, did we get rid of the Saints already? We did, and we didn't get rid of the Cardinals yet, so we can put the Cardinals.
Oh
down.
God, yeah.
So I think most obviously, I think the Cardinals are at the top here. The Dolphins, they're. Oh, we already got rid of them. Never mind. Okay, well, this is 6.
I still don't like getting rid of the Giants.
Well, then you got to give me another team to get rid of.
Well, if we're going AFC, this is where I suggest the Chiefs.
No, not happening.
Come on, who's having fun watching the Broncos this year?
I mean, I'm not, but they're 9-2. You can't do that.
You can if it's vibes based.
I know it's all vibes based, but at some point you just have to be like, that's the best defense in the NFL.
Okay, fine, but doesn't mean I have to like it. You know what? This is still a very solid 6.
Yeah, I'm sorry that we got rid of the Giants. I get where you're coming from, but you got to
hate it, but I understand.
Yeah.
I don't have a better answer as to who else you would kick out.
So the 6 are the Jets, Raiders, Dolphins, Browns. The 12 are Jets, Raiders, Dolphins, Browns, Cowboys, Saints, Cardinals, Vikings, Falcons, Bengals, Titans, Giants. We're good.
I mean, what if you remove the Giants and instead put the Steelers?
Oh, God, you found the one way out of this.
Yup.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of the Steelers because I skipped right over them because they're 6-5. But that's a good. Ooh, I don't know if I can get
independently. There are 2 games that you have the opportunity to watch. Do you watch the Giants game or do you watch the Steelers game?
You're right. Yeah, let's get rid of the Steelers. I can't believe the only mathematically eliminated team is still here after we eliminated 12.
As somebody who has preached against the whole vibes thing, nope, I'm riding the vibes here.
Yeah.
It's absolutely.
Yeah, the Steelers have rancid vibes.
Just absolutely awful. Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat also asks, for Arif's theology corner, based on his social media presence, J.J. McCarthy is a devout man of God, yet he is delivering the Vikings' worst quarterback play since at least 2013. How should a Christian ponder the mystery of a good man deserted by his Lord? Oh, that's no.
Okay. So first of all, let me tell you about this guy named Job.
Really, let's just expand this to the story of Job experienced through an entire football fan base.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a better way to. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's rough. Kirk asks, question for the show's James Corner.
Okay.
During recording, what does James do while Arif is giving one of his many lengthy rants? One time I played blackjack, but I don't make it a habit.
Make it a habit. Dude, he does all kinds of stuff because he's like muted, right? So I have like no idea what he's getting up to.
Yeah, it's usually no good. But I will say that during the interview with Justice last week, that we weren't expecting to record.
Yeah.
So I was just on the call until it was done. Other than praying that the tech stuff was not going to break, and making sure the backup was running nicely. I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for a little while waiting for the Justice portion to be done. So there's that. Yeah. Let's go to the Logic Dump, who asks, for the Norse code conspiracy theory, To follow on from the Tell Us with Metellus video where the players admitted to their conspiracy theories, my conspiracy theory is that Arif's very public and vocal hatred of turkey as the go-to Thanksgiving dish is just a ruse to stop other people from bringing a turkey to local gatherings so he can be the savior who walks through the door with the event-saving stuffed turkey. Which Discord bit do you believe is just a cover for the person wanting to do the opposite?
Okay, so I'll say this, two things. One, most of the people I know in real life don't listen to the show. So there's like no way I'm influencing them on whether or not they have turkey at Thanksgiving, unless they're specifically going out of their way to ask me for their opinion, which will relate to another question that we get, shockingly enough. So that doesn't impact anything there. I will be going to a Thanksgiving where there will be turkey, and I'm not going to like tell the host that they did Thanksgiving wrong. That's insane. Two, if I were to do that, do you think I would have a stuffed turkey? Are you kidding me? That's crazy. We like decades of science, specifically Thanksgiving turkey science. Thank you, Elton Brown, have told us not to stuff the turkey. By the way, Elton Brown is starting like a new YouTube show or something like that, like 15-minute videos. He started with the first episode was like a turkey episode, actually, which he wet brined. I was shocked. It seems like everybody is kind of come around to just you dry brine, but he wet brined. That was interesting. It's part of the thawing process. There's like a whole deal behind it, but he didn't even compare it to dry brining. I was very curious about that. But anyway, watch that. That's great. But stuffing is evil. Is like that's from season 1 of Good Eats. They finished with Romancing the Bird, right? That was the hour-long special at the end of the season. And the thing that they said is stuffing is evil. And he gave a very good reason, which I have not seen refuted by anyone and has been confirmed by multiple science-based food personalities. It's not the same thing as scientists, but it's the closest I can get, which is that stuffing does a couple of bad things if you put it inside the bird as you cook it. Maybe you stuff the bird afterwards, but I don't know. One, it takes much longer to cook that mass, and so you're just much more likely to dry out an already dry meat, right? I'm not going to talk about that more, but like that increases the challenge unnecessarily. Two, there's a really good chance that parts of the bird are not necessarily as clean as you want them to be, right? And you might not get the stuffing up to the temperature to kill that bacteria. And so you're just much more likely to increase food contamination as a product of that, especially if you take the bird out at the right temperature for the breast meat. There's a good chance that the stuffing is unsafe to eat. So no, why would you say stuffed turkey? Absolutely not. And if you stuff the turkey after the fact, I just feel like you have to dig the stuffing back out of the turkey in order to serve it. Like it just doesn't do anything. So, already this is a kind of super doesn't know ball type question. Sorry, Logic Dump. That's just not how I operate. But no, I always make mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving. And they're great, by the way. Incredible mashed potatoes.
Is this where I say that I'm going to be wet brining? I am going to be wet brining.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I was surprised Elton Brown did it because it seemed like the science-based food approach to turkey on Thanksgiving was exclusively to dry brine. Look, I trust Elton Brown a lot. And so if he says that the negatives to, which he didn't say explicitly, if he says the negatives to wet brining are worth it, there's probably something to that. So, I'm not saying you're wrong for wet brining. I'm saying I'm surprised.
Yeah. Let's go to Anya Taylor. As for the Discord bit, that's just a cover for the person wanting to do the opposite. I think Don might be a decent husband.
Wow. That's
my hot take.
Interesting. Okay.
Anya Taylor Joy asks, for James and Arif's bad movie date corner. By the way, we are fully off the rails.
Yeah, if you didn't know.
What are the worst movies you've seen while on a date with prospective partners? Mine was The Happening, which unfortunately I chose after my girlfriend had selected Kung Fu Panda.
Wow. That's so interesting.
That is a choice right there. If you're struggling, I've got two.
So I don't know. So this is not like a first date type situation. Current partner.
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So I just watched, and we went in thinking it would probably be bad. So I don't know if it counts, but it's the Justin Timberlake, Mila Kunis movie, Friends with Benefits. That's it. We just watched that like the other day. And I don't know what to think of this movie because at its fundamental core, the bones of this movie are bad. There's so many bits in the movie that are like products of like really good writing that it just kind of hits you across the face. You're like, what in the world? Like they like set up like these moments of parallel character development, or they've got like the symbolism that runs through the movie and it just kind of shows up at moments that are like important and deep and developmental. They've got some of these really clever lines and callbacks in the movie. Like at some point, a good writer had inserted themselves into the room against like all God's will and made this bad movie have moments. But like at the same time, it's just not there. And it's so, you know? So that's it. And also like the comedy, I don't think ages super well. I hate it. So, a movie that made me very uncomfortable with whether or not it was good or bad. If that counts, that's the most recent one.
I can think of a couple. I watched the movie It on a first date.
On a first date?
We were some friends were together. It wasn't like technically it was like the first day we met.
Okay, yeah.
So like, hey, you know, we're meeting here, and then we went off for coffee afterwards, and yeah, so we saw the movie It on technically what would be a first date. That movie and date eventually, as time goes forward, led to a restraining order against her, so that was fun. I've told many a crazy Brooke story. Let's go to the reboot of G.I. Joe, which I saw it wasn't a dinner theater, but they served food at the movie theater.
Okay.
In one of the burbs near Egan, or not near Egan, near Edina. I don't remember exactly where, but that date and food was awful. I hate the movie Moulin Rouge with a fiery passion that occasionally starts my clothes on fire.
Oh yeah. We've avoided this topic a couple of times, I think.
Yeah, I hate that movie, and it's because I've seen that movie with on a relatively early date.
One of my first ever crushes was obsessed with this movie. So I just kind of ended up with like a really positive like impression. I mean, I did watch the movie. I'm not saying I only got
Prisoner's Dilemma. Is that what happened here?
That's not what the prisoners. You're thinking of Stockholm Syndrome, I think.
Oh, okay. Apologies. Yeah, Stockholm Syndrome. Sorry, I just watched an episode of Game Changer where they were discussing like, well, what game should we play? And somebody said The Prisoner Dilemma, and I went, no.
We're playing Sophie's Choice. No. Yeah. So I have a very positive feeling about that movie. I like Moulin Rouge, but I don't go into that with clear eyes and a full heart, as it were.
Yeah, I admit my view may be tainted. Let's go to the Village Yakmonger, who asks, for James's relationship corner, if the state of California never processed Brandon Ayuk's marriage to the 49ers, how much better would he be financially? Well, you see, as it turns out, their divorce is going to be an issue, and it's going to drag out for a bit. But especially if the 49ers are trying to nuke his guaranteed money this year.
That's the crazy part. And like he might take that at some, like, that's how bad it's gotten. Like he must be mega hurt or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, refusing to go to this is Not great. Robert asks, what's more likely? JJ McCarthy gets a QBR of over 75 in a game this year, or Aaron Rodgers divorces his AI wife because she's been cheating on him with Sumer Brain?
Okay. We did do a little Sumer Brain bit before the show, as we always do. And look, I understand that we're not holding his AI girlfriend to the highest of standards, as it were, because it is an AI girlfriend. But I struggle to see how someone could cheat on anybody with Sumer Brain specifically. Like, I know that AI romances, divorces caused by AI romances are a thing now, like enough that people are writing stories. I don't know, like, if there's any statistical significance to them, probably not. You can always find a Just So story to write about. But
is this like when in the mid to like early 2010s, the word Facebook appeared in X percentage of divorce filings?
No, because like that's a real number to attach to the amount that this phenomena had like taken hold of people. But that is funny. I don't know that we have any data on how often it's actually appearing in divorce filings. I just know that like some enterprising writers have found enough examples of divorces being caused by or influenced through the existence of a relationship someone has with an AI, enough for there to be multiple newspaper stories about it. So it is a social phenomena of an unknown significance. So I'm not saying that like people who are not named Aaron Rodgers can't find a way to like screw up real life relationships with an AI that seemingly has a very limited menu of responses. I just think that even if Aaron Rodgers' wife, right, even if Aaron Rodgers' standards were so limited that he was comfortable having an AI wife, I think she would be up to the standard that she would not have all that much fun interacting with Sumer Brain. It just doesn't have like that a personality. It's ChatGPT 4.0 mini, I want to say. It's a very limited model. So I'm going to go with 75 JJ McCarthy QBR, and this is entirely a product of how much I respect Sumer Brain's ability to role play. He did get a 49.6 against the Detroit Lions this year. So, wow, we're so close, buddy. We're so close.
We have, well, I'd say we have faith in you, but
I wouldn't say that. That's not how I would say that.
It's the opposite of faith. Delta BC Dad asks, for Arif's quarterback comparison corner, should the NFL invoke a quarterback communism and DEI policy whereby all quarterbacks are rendered equivocally effective? Sure. I'm just going to pronounce it incorrectly. It's late. To each other by adding weights to their arms and legs to reduce their effectiveness relative to each other, thereby making it impossible to actually compare quarterback play against each other, thus making coaching a more important element of the game, like how with Formula One, all the motors are more or less standardized now.
Well, I mean, in Formula One, the reason they do that is so that there's like skill expression among the drivers, right? And also because like the more rules you impose on how to build an engine, the funnier ways you can produce cheating outcomes. Cheating is so endemic to racing. It just feels like that's like part of the thing. It's like, oh, you've got a new rule. Let me circumvent it. Given that quarterback play is itself the skill expressive portion of it, it's not really a one-to-one. And I have no idea whether or not Delta BC Dad is explicitly referencing Harrison Bergeron, the story by Kurt Vonnegut, where they like, that's what happens so that all people are like equal. They like make them, if you're really pretty, you got to wear like a clown nose. And if you're strong, you got to wear like weights, which I don't know how well thought out that was, because I think that would make you stronger, but whatever. The idea was that you've got to like in this idea of a society where everyone's equal, you got to do these things. I don't know that would this make coaching a more skill expressive element? I don't see that. I feel like it would just make running backs really, really, really important and receivers really, really important. I still don't think that would end up with like coaches do it. Like you'd have to do this for all players, and then we wouldn't have a sport. Like I deeply understand your desire to wokeify the NFL. Trust me. I don't see how this particular response can do that.
Let's go to our next question, which is from Nolan Kaler, who asks, for Arif's opera corner, a corner we do not spend enough time in, what aria or role would you recommend JJ train with in order to build up stamina for the most important aria he has to perform now, the can?
So, what operatic score? I don't really know. Should he train with so that he can better communicate in the huddle and then canning plays at the line of scrimmage? I'll be honest. I have not plumbed the depths of my opera knowledge recently, so I'm a little rusty. But I would imagine some of the more strenuous arias in opera come from like Puccini. So probably something along those lines. It really depends on if he's like a baritone or a soprano. Like I feel like that changes your answer a lot, right? Because like there's baritone arias, there's soprano arias, there's alto arias. I feel like we need a better understanding of what his register is.
True to form, I asked Sumer Brain.
Oh, that's what you. Okay, fantastic.
So Largo el Factotum, sure, from a name of a show I'm not going to pronounce, by Rossini. This energetic aria requires rapid articulation and dynamic contrast, challenging the singer's breath control and agility.
Oh, yeah,
so
that's
there
perfect.
You go.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I just Googled it. So this answer comes directly from Quora, which we can trust. Brunhilde's immolation scene at the end of Götterdämmerung. So there's an acting component to this that also increases the challenge. So the lead soprano has sung the Brunhildes in 2 previous operas. There's been a full run. So it comes to a 15-minute climax after singing for a long night, where she's about to ride into a funeral pyre of her dead lover, setting Valhalla on fire and redeeming the world by destroying the gods. That sounds pretty intense. You have the previous hours on stage. There's range. There's a lot of dynamics and movement. It requires a lot of stamina. And then, of course, you have to be a convincing actor to bring the epic story to all of its appropriate conclusions with the intense amount of expression, which I feel like that's how he described 9, right? Like he's the one mean mugging. So like, I think if you could get 9 to do the immolation scene at the end of Götterdämmerung, I think probably that.
Yeah. My 5-year-old plans to replace me asks, question for James and Arif's relationship corner. Last week, you, my colleagues, and my wife's Insta followers all agreed with her that Ever After is great. I feel like all of these L's I'm taking are hurting a relationship. Is this a sign that perhaps we should get a divorce? And if not, how do you recommend I turn these L's into W's?
So you're asking if you should be kind of relegated to a lower league. I feel like I feel like the season's not over, and kind of giving up on the season thus far is not really going to improve things for you, because relegation comes with it all kinds of costs, right? In addition to splitting half of your net worth, now all of your best players want to leave your team because they're all Premiership players. They're not, League One players, right? So, it's tough. I would avoid relegation as much as I could. I mean, the TV deals are just not nearly as good in the lower leagues. So, I would say probably the best way to approach this is to kind of be forthright, or seemingly forthright, because if we're taking the premise of the question, which again I disagree with, I don't think you should attempt to win a relationship. But if we take in the premise of the question and assume that that is a thing that makes sense for you to do, I would say take the perceptive L, so that kind of long term, you can start developing all of these small edges, right? And so your perceptive L should be some kind of social dynamic about yourself that you were unaware of that prevented you from fully evaluating the movie on its own terms, honestly. So that could be saying that you've confronted your internalized sexism. That could be you've confronted your internalized bias against, fairy tales and children's stories in serious adult movies. It could be any number, like you had a bad experience with the Drew Barrymore movie. I don't know. Anything where you can bring out something where you've got the ability to kind of discuss yourself as if you've grown as a person. And then you start applying that filter that you've created about how you've come around to this movie to other items, so that you can essentially outwoke other people about media through the same lens. Hey, I think that people don't treat children's media with the appropriate seriousness and attention that it deserves, because there's a lot of really complex themes here. Let me tell you about Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? You can start building some W's, but you got to take a huge perceptive L by admitting where you were wrong and why you were wrong, and then using that why to start building W's later on down the line. Season's not over.
It seems a bit early to be cutting and running.
Yeah.
Also, from my 5-year-old plans to replace me, question for Arif's Thanksgiving Etiquette Corner. Despite my best attempts and suggestions, the Thanksgivings I will be serving turkey with no other main dish. How do you recommend I let the host know that they've made a mistake in cooking turkey, and why it isn't worth the time to cook compared to the other mains? Should I use passive aggression, note that other meats are superior, create a mashup of Arif's anti-turkey tirades to play as the party music?
Okay, that last one feels especially not that compelling. I would not tell the host directly anything like this. I would not tell anybody at either gathering directly anything like this. In fact, we've gotten to a point. So when we first had this turkey take, like 11, 12 years ago, I feel like from the beginning of the show, right, James? Long-time listeners know. Yeah. That when I initially had this take, I don't think it was the contrarian, capital C contrarian take that people had. And then it became the contrarian take. And now it's kind of like a tired take. Like it's a mainstream take. And so if we were asking this advice 10 years ago, I'd say, hey, you've got this kind of like different approach to Thanksgiving. And so you could just say, hey, you just post on your Facebook, a thing that people did. Just post on your Facebook, hey, I think we could make Thanksgiving better by ditching the turkey. Right? You've got your classic kind of clickbait beginning to your post. And then you just post like, these are the issues I have with turkey. It's not that it can't be good, but et cetera, right? The whole deal. And then you say, so I think that we should do X, Y, or Z. And I think 10 years ago that would have gotten traction. Now you just look like an annoying jerk, right? Because a bunch of people have this take, and now it feels like this is the contrarian take that no one really likes, and people only have it to seem smart. So it's pretty difficult to introduce this unfortunately true take into the consensus. So what I would do is probably after Thanksgiving. So you got to set up for the next Thanksgiving. Again, long plays. After Thanksgiving, you would probably want to bring up like, man, it is really weird how many people are talking about how we shouldn't have turkey at Thanksgiving, assuming you've not done this specifically to your hosts already. Otherwise, you're just talking about yourself and pretending you never did it. But I would say, like, it's weird how many people are saying you shouldn't do turkey, and I've never really thought about that. It's like, because they're kind of dicks about it. It makes me not want to do it, but, like, I wouldn't mind a crown roast at Thanksgiving. That sounds interesting. Like, distance yourself from the kind of people who do that, right? Which now includes me. And just be like, they suck, but I like roast chicken a lot.
You know what? You could just show up with a ham.
It depends on how rude that is to the social environment that you're in, because I feel like
it's incredibly so. You probably won't be invited back, but you'll make
great, good.
Yeah, like who wants to be around people? Like, let's just do that. Just bring a ham and see how it goes. Actually, regardless of what the question is that Kyle Segal is going to ask here next to end the show, he should just bring a ham to Thanksgiving too. Kyle Segal asks, let's say, hypothetically, you're in charge of a massive underground resistance that spans an entire state, recently became flush with heavy weaponry, and now you've got a cool new uniform with lots of totally legit medals.
Right.
My question is, how does one handle the Messiah complex?
I feel like
excellent question to end the show.
I feel like I'm the wrong person to ask this. My face is on shirts, so I don't know that I can answer this question appropriately. I would say, the natural solution to this is to have a limited set of trusted advisors who eventually one of them will betray you and solve this problem for us, right? But I feel like that's not the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, you're not looking to get poisoned by your quote enemies,
right? Like you don't want your vizier to start scheming, as it were. So I would say, first of all, avoid the rings of power. I feel like that's number one, easy, right? But B, I feel like just lead from the front, right? Don't ask people to do anything that you wouldn't do yourself. Now, you don't have to do it all the time, right? But show up for like latrine duty every so often. Go out on patrol. Not too dangerous, but make it seem like you're going out in a dangerous patrol, right? Like I feel like become a man of the people and genuinely do the dirty work so that you kind of understand where everyone is coming from when they're performing their tasks, so you can have a better understanding of the way that you're interacting with them, because it seems like you are in charge, and people who are in charge are very often distanced from the responsibilities of the people that they're in charge of, and that creates a lot of problems. So you got to be digging some ditches sometimes, I think.
A good rule of thumb is that if Gaddafi did it, you probably shouldn't. Thus, to avoid how
avoid the open air slave markets or even closed air slave markets, if I'm being honest.
Yes, just because it closed doesn't make it better.
Yeah, see, just no slave markets, I think, is a good rule here.
What a hot take.
That's what people come to the podcast for.
Yeah, that's long-time listeners and all that.
Yeah. Okay. Adding to the list of things, no yellow cake, no slave. Okay, got it. Adding that to the
You know what? That seems like an excellent way to end this episode of Norse Code. Arif, what do you have to plug?
So Matt Freese is writing a follow-up piece to the Brosmer piece in anticipation of the issues of Brosmer potentially starting. I've got a piece, my post-game piece at Wide Left, kind of builds on the larger piece, the Waiting for Cement to Dry piece that people resonated with. That's over at Wide Left. I don't really have a ton to plug outside of that. Check out wideleft.football. We have all your JJ McCarthy is unfortunately bad pieces.
If you didn't get enough of it in the podcast, we've got it in written form too. Well, that's me it for this episode of Norse Code. We hope you have enjoyed it. Just a reminder, I'm going to try to put out a bonus episode over on Patreon later this week. So for Arif, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember that you never want to go double Ngakwe. And we will see you soon.
Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, and wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan of... and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN or at my personal account at Big Mono. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there. For $3.50 a month, you get bonus material and more. You can also go to paypal.me/NorseCode for a one-time donation, or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some Norse Code merch. Any questions or comments that cannot fit in a tweet can be sent to norsecodepodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of the Norse Code staff, we thank you so much for listening.
Our formula is this.
Hey, all things are possible through the power of Ben DiNucci.